G'day everyone. Thought I'd pop in and have another discussion with you after all the things that I've been seeing online. I thought we could all have a chat together to discuss a few things because there's so much basically crap going on out there that I thought we might have a discussion as well. There's just so much hate, which is just ridiculous. So I thought we might have a discussion about the whole mirrorless thing with Canon and Nikon joining into this mirrorless market, and I thought we'd have a chat about that. G'day Tony. How you going? Good to see you in here. So just say hi. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes just to make sure people know I'm online. Video Master's here. G'day brother. Love you too, mate. Glad to see you on here as well. Nice and cold day in Melbourne today. But I've been looking at a few. I've been seeing sort of people all online, basically, and most of them I think are haters, talking about how the Sony fanboys are going off and saying ridiculous things. And I still think there's a lot of fear out there, particularly from Nikon and Canon shooters with their digital SLRs, and they're sort of starting to bag Sony. And I've noticed a number of videos pop up over the last couple of days. So I thought we'd have a discussion about that today. But I'm going to give it a couple of minutes to let everyone get on board. If you are coming in later on and you don't want to watch this pre-show, just skip to where I show the logo and then we'll start the full-on thing from there. But I'm going to give it a couple of minutes just to let everyone pop in. Barry's here, Mike's here as well. G'day Barry. Oreo's here. G'day Oreo. Good to see you on. Sniper V's here. Chris is here. Hello David. Today is a big Corona day in Los Angeles. It's not here, that's for sure, Chris. Mick's here as well. David Johnson. Lia's here. Jay Hamix is here. Kevin's here as well. Johnny Boy 800, morning from the UK. Boy, you're early, Johnny Boy, says Oreo. That's late as well. Trevor's here as well from Boston. What do you consider cold? Well, it is cold here today. It's 13 degrees Celsius. That's cold today. It really is quite cold. Yesterday was 20, so we had a nice warm winter's day yesterday. But it's 13 Celsius. It's probably not cold for some people, but it is for us. Johnny Boy say morning from the UK. Peter's saying hello as well. David Johnson's here as well. Ed, g'day David. Carl saying hi. David. Martin is saying hi as well. We've got a stack of people now popping on board. Guys, if you can too, just give a thumbs up because it just lets people know that I'm online. That'd be good if you could do that for me because this wasn't scheduled. Basically, I just thought I'd have a chat with you after seeing so much crap online. I thought we'd have a discussion about it today because there's so much negativity out there, and I thought I'm going to give it from Sony perspective today. Talk about whether I believe Sony has anything to fear from what's going on, and we'll have a discussion about that as well, and I'll open it up to questions at the end as well. Peter said, what's your live stream setup? Live stream setup, let me see if I can go to this other camera and I'll show you. I've just got to change the resolution in here. The live stream setup is actually, I'm using these mini Blackmagic Ultra Studio mini recorders that are connected via Firewire. So I'm actually using those to connect the cameras to. I'm using obviously a Mac Pro there for it's all connected into. I'm using the universal audio as the audio component there. Up the top here, I'm actually using a Sennheiser microphone, boom mic, which works really well. And the audio side to connect through here, I'm actually using, oh God, I always do this. I've got to make that smaller. I don't know why. Oh, there we go. Is that better now? Yeah, I'll just take you through it quickly again. Yeah, I'm using the Ultra Studio Blackmagic down there. The Mac Pro is being used there. I've got the Universal Audio is being used there. Obviously, this is for screen calibration here as well. I'm using the Zoom H1 over there to connect the audio into the socket there as well. And sometimes I'll use this Yamaha AG06 there as well. And that is the Sennheiser mic. And obviously the camera's sitting at the back through here. And I've got the 24 1.8 lens basically. And this is just my office if you want to see what I'm looking at around here. Yeah, so let me skip back to this other camera. Diet Coke. I'm just laughing at Mike. He said, Diet Coke, are you sick or what? Well, you know what, Mike? You can't have this body if you drink sugar. Look at it. This body does not come easy, I'm telling you. Yeah, too zoomed in. Sorry, Sniper V. I've just fixed it, I think. What else? Sniper V, trust, we know. I'm not sure what that means. Anyway, I'm going to get started. So let me just bring up the Oastler images because we've got a stack now watching on board, and then we're going to have a discussion about all this stuff that's going on at the moment. G'day everyone, just had a bit of a pre-show. I thought today we might have a discussion about all the negativity out there, particularly that is going on with the mirrorless cameras, particularly with the fact that Nikon has now said that they're releasing their first mirrorless, and Canon obviously is going to be releasing theirs, well, hopefully sometime next year. But I wanted to talk about the interesting thing. The hate that's out there is just ridiculous, and I've seen a number of videos that have been posted since. And most of them are bagging all the Sony fanboys, and I think it's just not justified what they're saying. Yes, I know there are some real fanboys out there that will basically never say Sony do anything wrong. I'm certainly not one of those. But I want to talk to you today, because I am a Sony user, I want to talk to you today about what this all means, I believe, to the future of Sony and how it will affect us. And I wanted to sort of talk to you from that respect as well, or aspect about it through there. And we'll open it up to a discussion a little bit later on, because I thought that might be nice to get your opinions as well. I did put a video on recently about, is it time to sell your digital SLR? And that was from my perspective too. I'm not saying that you have to. Remember, no one is going to force you to sell your digital SLR. And that's the thing that I want to make you understand here, that no one is actually forcing you to do that. But I think there's more advantages for doing that than not doing that. And there's reasons why for the way I shoot. Because the way I shoot, you definitely have an advantage if you are shooting with these new mirrorless cameras against anything that I could have ever shot with digital SLRs. Due to the fact of the mirror, for instance, not having the EVF, things like that, which really have changed the way that I shoot, and having video and stills incorporated into the same camera. Yes, current digital SLRs can do that, but they certainly don't do it as well as what Sony does, and that's one of the things at the moment. There's no camera out there that can do what Sony does. Now, I've had people before say to me, that's not true, but it is true, because you name me one full frame camera that's out there that can do 4K video as well as stills with image stabilization. There isn't one. There's no other full frame camera on the market that can do that, also with an EVF. So when you're getting people like Nikon users or Canon users saying that there's nothing a mirrorless can do that a digital SLR can't do, it's not true. You can't shoot the same way that I do for Fusion, which is stills and video, the same way that I can do it with a Sony camera, for instance, in full frame. There's no way I can hand-hold, for instance, a Canon, even though Canon has amazing focus in their video, there's no way I can hand-hold that and get a steady shot like I can with my A7 III. And that's because of the image stabilization. And this is why I'm saying to you, there is certain things that the Sony cameras at this stage have a major benefit to me. Now, if that doesn't suit you, no one is forcing you to sell your digital SLRs and move over to Sony. And that's the thing that I want you to understand here. I'm not bagging Nikon digital SLRs or Canon SLRs at all. I think they have a place in the industry, but they're just not for me, and that's why I sold all of that aspect of it. Now, as I've said previously, I really do hope that Nikon and Canon are successful with their mirrorless announcements, and that's probably one difference between the way I work and the way some others work on the internet or YouTube, for instance. I really do hope they succeed, because I think competition is an amazing thing. But so many people out there basically they're acting like they don't want competition, and this is what's so stupid. Guys, you have got blinkers on. If you think that not innovating for your camera supplier, like if Nikon didn't go into mirrorless, I honestly think that they would be in real trouble. And that's why they've finally seen the lighting, the light bulb was switched on, and they've finally realized that they have to get into this sector. It's also the reason why Canon have also, the light bulb is finally switching, we think, and they're also going to release a mirrorless camera next year as well, because they're realizing if they don't do that, they're going to be in serious trouble. So there's reasons why that's happening now in the marketplace. Now, are digital SLRs going to disappear tomorrow, the second a mirrorless is released? No, I don't think they will. But I will say this to you, that if the Nikon mirrorless camera is really good, the value of your current Nikon gear will drop. And I can guarantee that your bodies will drop. Now, they may produce something that is fantastic and it might work with the old lenses just as well, but we don't know at this stage, and that's the thing, and that's why I've said to people, don't jump ship yet, wait and see what Nikon released to see if that is going to be any good, and then you can make a decision from that point. But if they really do nail this, it obviously is going to have an effect on their digital SLRs, because why would you buy a digital SLR if the mirrorless body has much more than what that has already? And I just think that's the way that this could potentially go. Now, it may not, but that's what I'm thinking. But the hate out there is ridiculous. You're getting everyone saying, oh, Sony fanboys are saying this and they're the worst people on earth. It wasn't that long ago that every Nikon lover and every Canon lover, all their fanboys for instance, were going on about all of these issues with Sony, about they had no lenses, their color science sucked, all that sort of stuff. But they quickly forget that now, don't they? And that's the thing that is sort of annoying me in this whole thing. I think we all have to get over this complete utter rubbish of these fanboyism of like criticizing all the other cameras that are out there, and just remembering that it's just a tool. And that's the thing that I want you to realize, that it is just a tool. But having said that, I think Sony is in an amazing position. And that's what I wanted to talk to you about today, because everyone's going, in a lot of these news groups, I noticed particularly, and some YouTube videos, all of the Nikon fanboys and Canon fanboys are saying Sony's doomed, because if this is a great release, you know, Sony is just going to disappear. And what a load of crap. Honestly, and that's the thing, it is complete bullshit, and it's just not going to happen. And I thought we'd talk to you about that today. I thought I'd talk to you about why Sony is going to succeed, and why I think they're still going to lead the market, and why I don't believe anyone in the foreseeable future is going to catch up to them. And that's what I thought we'd talk about today. And I guarantee, though, I'll obviously get some trolls and everyone jumping on here once this is not live, and they're going to start saying things that aren't true. But look, all you ever get from them is they talk about the colour science, and I'm going to take you all through these. They talk about the colour science. That's one now that they keep seeming to throw back at us, and it's complete rubbish. They talk about the lenses. Well, that's no longer an issue either. They try to get us on Sony Pro support. That's no longer an issue either. And all of these other things. And it's just complete rubbish. And I want people to understand, particularly if you're new coming into this marketplace, what Sony has to offer you and what I think they'll be offering you in the future. So I thought I'd take a little bit of a different tack today. And just sort of a little bit of a fight back against these idiots that are just these fanboys that completely say wrong things. So I thought we'd talk about that today and have a discussion on that, and I'll open that up to questions at the end, because I thought it might be interesting. So let's start with colour science, because this is one of the most important things that we have to try and get out to the industry, that there is no issue with Sony's colour science. It is bullshit. There is no problem. And this is the interesting thing. It might be one fraction of a slider that you have to move to make a correction. Now, I put a video, and I'll stick this video link down below. I did a video just recently that was showing the difference between using a Nikon, it was the 5D Mark IV and a 70 to 200 millimeter lens. And basically, I thought that I'd show you that so that you can actually see how it works. And it's actually locked. Isn't that interesting? This stupid computer. I think it's crashed. Yeah, it has. I think that's crashed. It's probably too much to come through. Let me just see if I can reload this. No, it's not going to reload. What I'll do is I'll stick that page down below, because you can have a look, because I did a test of a 5D Mark IV and 270 to 200s. Now, the interesting thing is I actually thought the comparison was very, very close, and they really were close. I'm just trying to see if I can get it back up. Let me just see if I can bring up a new window. Oh, it's come back now. It's just slow because I've got so much open on this machine for the net. I did this comparison with a 5D Mark IV and a 70 to 200, and I used the A9 and the 70 to 200 f4. Now, in theory, the Canon should have blown the Sony image away, because I was using an f4 lens against a 2.8 Canon lens. And have a look at the results anyway. Like I said, I'll put that link down below so that you can watch that actual video, because I'd love you to know, to give your opinion about how close these things are. The color science is so close now. Remember now, this was the A9. The A7 III has been made even better. So like I said, I'll stick this, let me just see if it will actually move. I'm not sure if it will. I'll stick this in the links down below so that you can actually have a look and compare the comparison. I tried to make sure that the image was shot sort of exactly the same, similar settings and things like that. But the color science between the two of them is so close that it's not funny. And I'm just trying to see if I can actually get some images up that you can actually see. I'm just trying to see there if it actually shows it. So it'll actually get close, and then you'll see I do one shot with the A9 and I do one shot with the 5D Mark IV. So I'd love you to look at that anyway and tell me what you think about that, because I can tell you that when I shot that video, I was quite surprised at actually how close they became, because I was used to the A7R II. Now, the color science, I didn't even have a problem with that, to be honest, but I did have to move some sliders sometimes, because the color sometimes could be a little bit off in the greens. The skin tone would tend to sometimes look a little bit green, but just like I said, one slider, and basically I had that back to what it was anyway. It really was even a non-issue there. Now, the interesting thing is then when I did that test, those images are so close. Now, I still get people to this day saying, oh, the Canon's much better. But honestly, they are that close that if you put that out to the average user, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I can tell you that now. They would not be able to tell the difference. And I could match those two images spot on with probably 2 seconds work in Lightroom. Why is that an issue? It's not. Now remember, that's the A9. The A7 III has improved on that color science even more, because I think the color is even better. Now, God knows what the A7S III is going to have, or the next camera. I would say there'll be a continuing improvement in those cameras as well, and the color science is going to get better and better. But I've never ever had a client say to me that the skin tones don't look any good, ever. No one has ever said that. Anyone that's saying that is just a tool. I mean, seriously, just get a life and get over it, because it's just ridiculous. There is no problem with Sony's color science. I noticed today in the A7 III for video thing, I'm just going to see if I can bring this up. Let me just see if I can find it. Because I'd love to see if I can open this up for you to have a look. And I'll just show you the exact type of troll comments that are actually out there. I think it was A7 III for video. I think it's this one. Let me just see if this is it. I'm going to try and make it so that we can't see names. Yeah, so it's this. Let me just make this smaller so we're not going to see it. Now, this was posted this morning on this Sony A7 III for video shooters. And the comment there was, Dear Sony, you have 25 days to fix your damn color science. Now, you can read the comments later if you want to go onto the Sony A7 III and A7 III for video and have a look at the discussion that's actually in there. But this is the biggest load of troll crap I've ever seen in my life. This is just bullshit. There is no way that Sony has an issue with their color science. What planet is that guy trying to come from by saying you have 25 days to fix your color science or I'm moving to the Nikon mirrorless camera? How does he even know, that person, that Nikon mirrorless camera is going to be any better? But there is no problem with the Sony color science. Check that video that I posted, showed you just before. I'll put the link down below. Check that video and you'll see there is no problem with Sony color science. Like I've said to you, I have not had one client that has said to me, David, there's a problem with your color on the Sony cameras. And I went fully from the Nikon full frame, the D4S, over to Sony, and I have not had one client that even noticed a difference in my images in that respect. So where is this color science crap coming from? And it is complete, utter rubbish. Now, people were in that forum saying immediately, oh, should I not be getting the A7 III? And see, this is what happens. These people believe what these trolls are actually saying in there by saying that Sony have an issue with their color science, and it's complete, utter crap. Do not believe these trolls, because they will try anything to have a go at Sony. They will always do it because they're terrified of what's happening in the industry. They're paranoid about what they've got, their amazing digital SLR or whatever that they've got is going to become obsolete. So they're picking up any crappy trolly thing that they can pick on to try and say that there is an issue with their color science. There's not a problem with Sony color science. So that's the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Don't believe any crap you hear online that talks about there's a color science problem. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Sony A9 sensor. This Sony A9 sensor, there's nothing like it anywhere in the industry at the moment. Now remember, this camera is around about 1.5 years old. There's nothing out there at all that can compete with this. Now, I wouldn't even expect anything to come close that's announced in mirrorless at all, because the issue is, at the moment, let's look at the specifications at what this has. The Sony A9 is a 24.2 megapixel full frame sensor. It has 20 frames per second blackout free burst. Now, there's no other camera available that has anything like that at this stage in full frame. There's another groundbreaking thing here too, that it's got 1/32,000th of a second fastest shutter speed. There's nothing out there again that can do that in full frame. The focus itself is 693 points, auto area phase detect autofocus, so that's another thing too. It's got 93% coverage. Maximum ISO 204,800. It's also got the 5-axis body integrated image stabilizer. And it's got this Bionic X processing engine, and it's also got 4K 30p video. Now, remember, when you're dealing with this, that Sony have only got that in the A9 at this stage. That sensor is just incredible. There's nothing out there on the marketplace yet that can even compete with that. Who knows what the A9 II is going to have? Again, they're probably going to improve this so much more. And again, they may release, say, an A9 II sometime next year. So, it's going to be interesting to think what they're going to offer in the coming days with that. And it's still my favorite camera, the A9. There's still nothing like it that has that blackout-free burst shooting. The EVF is just amazing. 1/32,000th of a second is just incredible. And remember, that sensor is the thing that gives you the ability to get no rolling shutter in your still images. And that is an amazing thing as well. So we're talking about sensors here. Now, that's the only camera that sensor's available in, and there is nothing out there like that can compete with that, and it really is groundbreaking. So that's one aspect that we're talking about here, that don't forget Sony have got these amazing sensors, and like I said, that's now, 1.5 years old. Who knows what they have for their latest sensor that probably will be announced next year. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is global shutter, because I think if anyone can bring out a global shutter, it's probably going to be Sony. Now remember, there's massive advantages about global shutter because it totally gets rid of any of the movement problems that you have with your normal shutter. You don't have to worry about flash sync speed anymore. And they have already developed one already. It's only, I think at this stage, though, a 1.46 megapixel illuminated sensor. So that's one thing with that this probably will be, I wouldn't be surprised to see this come out sometime next year. They just have to obviously develop a higher megapixel sensor. But Sony clearly are working on this global shutter now. You can see that if you read this article, and I'll put these links down below so you can read that as well. And I think that's also going to be an amazing thing as well. Like I said, this gets rid of your shutter speed sync problem. So at the moment, you're limited to 1/250th of a second. The second that they bring a global shutter out, that is no longer an issue anymore. And also, like I said, you won't get any rolling shutter at all because it's basically an instant exposure. So this is a really interesting future. And I do believe that Sony are probably going to get that released before anyone else. Because remember, they do have this one big advantage about having a sensor manufacturer as part of the company. And this is one of their major advantages. And this is why I think that the Sony have such a bright future ahead of them. And I really think it's going to be amazing, actually. So I think that's one fantastic thing that Sony have in the future, is a global sensor. I think will be the next generation of sensors. I wouldn't be surprised too to see if it's square, because I think that could also be the future. Then you don't have any issues about shooting up landscape or portrait. But again, Sony is one of the only few manufacturers out there that can do the sensor division. So that is fantastic for Sony. And that's why I put this in here, to say that Sony do have a complete sensor division. So that has to be a major advantage. Just let me move that over a little bit. It has to be a major advantage. Now remember, Nikon probably in their mirrorless camera will be having a Sony sensor. It might be designed by Nikon, but it's going to be it probably will be a Sony developed sensor. So that's one really great thing as well. And remember, Sony tend to keep their latest sensors though strictly for Sony cameras. That's why the A9 sensor has not been given to anyone else. That sensor may be given to someone else when they bring out an A9 too. So you're always going to get the best and latest and greatest by having a Sony camera, because they're actually developing these sensors. So that's another really big plus for Sony as well. The next thing that I thought too was the A7S III. I can't wait to see what Sony release here. I mean, who knows what this camera is going to have? But they are talking about the latest cameras, that it probably will have 4K HDR at 60p. And again, this is probably going to be groundbreaking. And I think there's reasons why Sony have held off on this camera, and I really do believe that now, that I think they probably could have announced this and released it earlier. But I think knowing what's happening in the industry, they've probably held back a little bit. And I think that's what they're doing now. They're definitely holding back, I think, for the new EVF on that camera. And they're also going to be waiting to say have 4K HDR and 60p. So like I said to you, that these are the things that Sony still have to announce. So yes, we can get really excited about what Nikon have, but oh boy, what is Sony going to release next year or late this year? And I can't wait to see what's going to actually happen here. And this is the thing for me, that I am so excited. I'm also, like I said to you, I'm also excited about Nikon, and I really hope that the Nikon mirrorless survives. And I really do believe that. I just get a bit annoyed. Someone said that it turned into a rant. And the reason why this turned into a rant is because I'm so sick of the people out there that are trying to lie to people, and they've got to stop doing that. People have to stop lying to other users to say that Sony are no good, and their cameras are no good and things like that. It has to stop. And yes, it was a rant, but sooner or later we have to fight back a little bit. Anyway, so let's get back to this. So how exciting probably is this going to be? And they may also do something like an internal ND as well. But again, we don't know what that's going to offer. It may also offer the same focusing, I think it will, as what the A7 III or the A9 has. And they may, you never know, they may even alter the body. But having said that, I am sure that Sony are going to hit this out of the ballpark once this is released. And I just can't wait to see what is actually available. So, before I open it up to questions and the discussion, I think, honestly, when you listen to all the trolls and everyone out there saying that Sony's doomed by all this mirrorless stuff that's happening in Nikon and, you know, everyone's going to jump ship, it's just complete rubbish. I think the future for Sony is going to be fantastic, and I think, actually, we're going to win out of this, because the second there's more competition there, Sony are probably going to have to lower prices. Again, win-win for us. They're also going to have to offer better features and better cameras. Who knows what they could even do with an A7 III now if they wanted to, say, do things in firmware on that camera. We've seen that done before. We've seen that done before with the GH5 and the Fuji cameras. So who knows what's going to be offered there as well. But that's sort of what I'm saying now. So I think we're all in a win-win scenario here. We really are. And that's why I'm saying to you that I really do hope that Nikon and Canon do fantastic releases, because it will push Sony to give us better things. But let's open it up to the chat anyway, because I'm curious to know what you guys have to say. You'll probably go crook at me for going on a rant. Trevor said, I think that's where basically it starts, doesn't it? Yeah. Titanium said, you need a stubby, David. That probably would have calmed me down. Obeyed Hake said, camera is just a tool. Any camera nowadays is good if one knows how to take a picture. Yep. But don't forget, I agree with you in one way, and this is what I've also said to you before, that photography is an art, and this is the thing about photography, right? It is an art. But I really believe that the Sony mirrorless has enabled me to do things that I couldn't do before, and this is something else. Yes, a really good camera, if you're also a good photographer, the latest cameras will let you do things that you could not do before. And this is something you've also got to understand. Like I said to you, I could not have done Fusion like I do now when I was shooting Nikon with the digital SLRs that I had at the time. There's no way I could have done video and stills at the same time. For instance, like I said to you, you cannot handhold digital SLRs as good as what I can handhold my Sony cameras, because of the image stabilization in the camera. If you're shooting out in sunlight, they're very hard to see the screen, whereas I can use the EVF when I'm shooting video at the same time as shooting stills. It's things like that that really matter. I can't shoot 4K. I couldn't shoot 4K with amazing autofocus. They're things that it has made a difference. So yes, I do agree with you, Obeyed, that the camera is just a tool, but having these extra features can take you to another level if you are a good photographer. Mike said, nice rant, but I'm completely with you on everything you ranted about. Lance is saying hello. Mike is also saying, will the new Nikon mirrorless be able to shoot brick walls at high quality? I don't know, perhaps it will, Mike. It might be able to do brick walls. Like said, I think it's fair to assume that both Nikon and Canon have been actively pursuing mirrorless offerings. The delay to the market is hopefully because they both release awesome cameras from the get-go. And I agree with you, and I hope they do. And this is the thing, and most of you probably are thinking like you, that most people aren't trolls, and that's a good thing. It just annoys me, like when I showed you that thing on the A7 Facebook page, A7 III, when he said about the Sony color science. It clearly was a troll comment, because there isn't a problem. Lance said, dropping the ball, fecal shot, love it. Oh, I'm going to get slammed with this, I know. Right, Slot, what do you believe the Canon may show at Photokina? They're probably going to give a sneak peek, I think, of their camera. Let's hope it is a good one. And let's hope that Canon don't hold back on their features like they have done previously. That's why I think Nikon will probably be a good release, and I'm hoping Canon don't hold back. Like I said, the only thing we haven't had from Nikon yet that we just don't know how well it's going to go is their video autofocus. So we do have to wait and see on that. For stills, it should be fantastic. Kelly said, I'm loving the Sony A7 III for individual portraits, but I'm struggling to get used to shooting big flash outdoors in the sun on the fly during weddings. The EVF preview toggle seems a little quirky. Oh, that's interesting, Kelly. I don't have an issue with that at all. I only ever turn the preview off. What I do is I tend to just leave the preview on. Now, I'll set my all I do is on the quick menu on these cameras, you know, the star if you're looking through here, I'll set live preview. If you notice on there, I've got live view display setting on. So all it really means is that I have to go into there to turn it off. It takes 2 seconds to turn it on and off. Now, all I do is I turn the flash off, and then I'll have live preview on, obviously, and then I'll get my ambient exposure. And then all I'll do is I'll turn it off, the live preview, and then shoot away. So, actually, no, I don't even do that. That's in studio. To be honest, all I'm doing, I'll tell you how I do it. On the camera itself, on these, you can turn your flash on or off. I turn the flash off, leave live setting preview on the whole time. As soon as you turn the flash off, you'll see the live preview effect through here, your normal exposure. I get the correct exposure, then I turn that on, and then it doesn't matter, I just fire away because I've already set my ambient exposure. Trev said, Sony's colour science for video, especially for log, is quite difficult to work with compared to Panasonic, Canon and Fuji, but you can work with it and practice just like anything else. And yeah, Trevor, you might be correct if you're using those log profiles. I shoot standard, and everyone is always amazed by when they always ask me, what log profile have you used, what setting have you used, and I'm shooting standard everything. And check out Kiara's videos that I've posted and tell me that the colours don't look nice on those videos. I've never had any client in my wedding say, David, the colours on my skin doesn't look any good. And I'm always shooting in standard profile. And the thing is too, Trev, that I'm using Leeming LUT. And I've found that if you're doing log profiles, Leeming LUT is so easy to use, and I'm using that when I'm using log profiles, and it's just one click basically and it's all done, and it's fantastic. What else? Mick said Sony is looking forward to, in anticipation of what Nikon and Canon bring. The future is looking good for mirrorless, full frame mirrorless cameras, because it will all be competing with, and we'll be bringing new features in quicker. And that's the thing, we all win. And that's what I think is great. And too many people aren't saying that. Too many people are saying Sony's going to disappear and all this sort of rubbish. And it's just crap. Michelle said, to video a wedding, I use my A6300, A7 III, and Nikon D850, and Nikon's auto white balance was very close to what my eyes saw. The Sonys were red, so red. Yeah, I don't use auto white balance though. See, that's where you're making a mistake. Use one of these. Just use one of these. I don't ever use auto white balance if I'm doing video. I'm using these and do a custom white balance. Then I never have a problem. Casper said, Sony going to make big money selling Nikon all those sensors. That's true, actually. Titanium said this has turned into a rant. Well, I'll just fire back a little bit. James said, I don't know, just switched from Sony from Fuji, and I really miss how Fuji's images look right out of the gate. Of course, everything can look fine with post-work. And yeah, and I find, look, they all tend to look a fraction different, and they do, James, and that's the thing. But like I said, you've got to understand too that clients never notice this, and this is the thing. You may be used to the way Fuji's look. A Canon user may be used to the way Canons look. Sony may be used to the way Sony looks. A client is never going to tell you the difference. At the end of the day, a client is what matters to me. That's the only thing that matters to me, is will a client love my work and hire me for the next job? And I've never had a client say to me, David, your images don't look as good as what they used to when you shoot Nikon, or I would have preferred you to shoot Canon. It just doesn't work. Oreo said, those people are just time wasters, not worth your consideration, and you may be right. The only thing is, Oreo, that people, like if you read on that Facebook page, that people were believing that and saying, well, should I be buying my A7 III? I'm worried about that now. And they do worry people, and this is the thing that annoys me a little bit. Because remember, at the end of the day, I'm here for you guys, and I want to tell you what I believe is the truth. And like I said, you shouldn't be worried about buying an A7 III because of the colour science, because it's a non-issue. Trevor said, Dave E said, take a Bex. Take a Bix and calm down. Don't give those clowns oxygen. I love it. Trevor said, the colour science between cameras is different intentionally. The colours you get are the product of the sensors, how it detects, records and treats colours. But this is not a bad thing, it's options. But Trev, check out that video. They are so close, and they were so close. Yes, there's a fraction of difference. I'm not saying they're identical, but straight out of camera, JPEGs, and that was so close. Check it out. Casper said... where were we? I've jumped. Casper said, especially people bagging on Sony G-Master lineup, I could not resist a temptation since you're on a roll tonight. Yep, G-Master lenses are fantastic, just not for me. Trevor said, two major cinema camera manufacturers have both failed miserably to crack the CMOS global shutter conundrum, but maybe Sony has some dark magic up their sleeves. I still think they'll be the first one to bring out the global shutter, Trevor. Abade Hake says, Sony is the market leader in mirrorless world and Nikon and Canon are followers. They will always play catch-up games just like Sony is playing catch-up games to digital SLRs. They may not. I mean, look, they may do a fantastic release. And like I said, I hope they all do because it gives us all options. And this is the thing that I'm hoping that they do. I really hope Nikon and Canon do fantastic with their mirrorless releases. Suba said Sony are sensor king. Yes, I think that you're right. They definitely are. I assume you're talking about for the A7S III. I assume 4K 60p. Excuse me, burped. And 280 frames or 240 on the 1080p. Yes, probably. Dragon said Sony has a setup on both. Sony has a step on both Nikon and mirrorless cameras, and supporters of Nikon Canon are just catching up. Well, we don't know. I mean, the thing is, Dragon, that Nikon may produce an amazing mirrorless. Now, if you check their D850, the D850 is an incredible camera. It really is an amazing digital SLR. I wouldn't buy it though, but it is an amazing digital SLR. If they can bring all of those features into a mirrorless, it will be a great mirrorless. But like I said, they haven't answered yet how the video focus is going to be, and that's the thing that we still have to wait. So there's questions that are still unanswered, but they may produce a great mirrorless. We just have to wait and see. What else? Chris said, shot Canon over 30 years and decided to switch to Sony this month. The technology in the Sony A9 is awesome. I don't see Nikon and Canon coming out with a camera that will compete with that. I don't either. I don't think anything at this stage is going to be able to compete with that because it's the sensor that's the difference here. Sony have done some amazing voodoo with that sensor. They really have. There's nothing like it out there for what it is. And like I said, who knows what they're going to do with an A9 too. We just have to wait for that. Casper said getting hot in here. That was probably after my rant. Carl said, I can't wait for Nikon and Canon to release their mirrorless cameras. This will give Sony some advantage to make something even better. I agree wholeheartedly. Video Master said, you only give them more attention. I'm not aware of these trolls. You know, I get them all the time, Video Master, honestly. I've had a stack of them. You wouldn't believe the things I have to delete. Johnny said, Sony color science is as good as Canon and Nikon, hands down. It's so close. Yes, I agree with you. It is that close now that one slider you can make them look exactly the same. But I never have to adjust for that anymore. Like I said, the images that I'm getting out of my A7 III, the A9, those cameras, I don't have to adjust color at all. They're amazing straight out of the box. They really are. Diogle said A7 III in stock in Sydney. I wouldn't think so. I don't think they're going to be in stock anywhere for a little while. Chris said, where were we? Chris said, competition is good. It is, I agree with you. Sabir said, now the release of Nikon mirrorless will compel Sony to introduce new lenses and compete and sell and the Sony E-mount ecosystem as well. Yeah, and look, the thing is now, don't forget now, we are really spoiled now on Sony with lenses, especially now with Sigma and Tamron on board. that's just going to grow and grow and grow. And it probably will take other cameras time to catch up. If they're changing the mount on Nikon and if they're changing the mount on Canon, it is definitely going to take them time, I believe, to get native cameras that are going to be native lenses to compete with that. So Sony now, interestingly enough, has the advantage. So it's quite interesting, actually, in that respect, that Sony now has an advantage. We don't know how well adapters are going to work. Clearly, even now on Sony, if you're using Canon, if you're dealing with stills, and you're using, say, an MC11 on a Metabones, it's as good in stills as, well, not quite as good, but it's pretty close to native focusing until you do video. But the second you do video for tracking and things like that, the autofocus doesn't work as well. And I don't think they're going to be able to do that even with the Nikon, even though it's going to be developed in-house. I'll be surprised if it works as well as being a native lens to that mount. But they may, you never know, they may. But I don't think so. So Sony really now have an advantage because we have so many native lenses now that you can use directly on the camera. So lenses now really are a non-issue. I'm just laughing there. Someone's saying my shirt looks too pink. Thanks, Caspar. Rod said, we all win in strong competition between camera manufacturers. New to Sony A7 III after using camera since 1998. I hope Canon wakes, though. Yeah, and I do too. I really hope Canon do something amazing. Titanium said, even the Luddites went away eventually. Mirrorless will take over the market eventually. I think it will too. Look, I'm not trying to make people sell their digital SLRs, but I do think mirrorless is the future, and I really do think that. I still think digital SLRs are going to be around for a while, but I think the concentration is going to be on mirrorless, and I agree with that completely. You may disagree with that, but we all can disagree, I suppose. Johnny said, Sony A7 III IAF is a huge advantage when we use fast lenses. It is, exactly. That was a game changer for me, and there really are a few game changers that you say has changed the total way you shoot, and IAF is just unbelievable. Being able to use that for weddings and portraits and things like that is just outstanding. Not having to recompose the camera all the time is so much faster. Using face detect to keep faces in focus when a bride's walking down the aisle. These are all things that have changed the way that I shoot. And like I said to you, it really has changed everything for me. Carl said, I use Sony log profiles all the time. They are fantastic. Thanks for letting us know, Carl. Kevin said, look, I wanted a full frame camera. That was next level for me, but I could not afford the 5D4, so I got the best camera for my art I could afford, period. I love my A7 III. I don't listen to trolls. And I agree with you, Kevin. That A7 III, I think at this stage is the best camera out there that gives you both video and stills. It is unbelievable. I still love personally the A9 more. But if you're dealing with something in that price range that gives you unbelievable video and stills, the A7 III is the best camera out there. Oscar said, competition benefits us all, but no Sony will stay in play. From the video side, Sony will still be the best. Canon will not cannibalize their cinema cameras. And that's the thing that we have to wait and see, don't we? To see if Canon will release everything or are they going to hold stuff back? Because that's what they've always done before. Sabur said, perhaps A7S III will be dominating for a couple of years to come. I'm really excited about what the camera's going to offer. I really am. And I really think Sony are going to they're going to throw everything at us with that camera. Gene said, Sony still beats Nikon and Canon's menu system. Let's not talk about the menu system. That's one other thing that they carry on about, don't they? Trevor said 180 frames per second in my GH5 is not terribly good. Yes, I found that too. I found the A7 III definitely is better at 180 frames per second. It's very good actually. And that's a smaller sensor. Reading that much data from a larger sensor will be even worse. I shoot 120 on my Sony's. Oh yeah, sorry, I shoot 120. It's very good on the 120. I found the 180 was pretty good on the GH5. I think, though, the 120 has been a big improvement on the A7 III. It definitely made a big improvement, and it's also very good on the A9. Phil said, Hi David, I shoot both Sony and Nikon. What's wrong with having a Ferrari Sony and a Range Rover Nikon in your garage? Nothing at all. The only thing is it gets confusing if you work fast because you have to change menu systems all the time. I tried it with a Panasonic GH5 when I shot that with the Sony system, and when I was doing things very fast it got confusing, so I sold the GH5s. Mark said, still waiting on my A7 III, ordered it 2 months ago. I also picked up the Zeiss 35 2.8, love that lens, and the 70 to 200 2.8. Do you recommend the 24-105 over the Tamron 28 to 75? It depends, because you've already got the 70 to 200. I don't know if you... it's hard to say on that one. I mean, if you hadn't got the 70 to 200, I'd probably say get the 24 to 105. I probably wouldn't recommend either of those lenses because you've already got the 35 and the 70 to 200. Oh, yeah, you want the wider actually, don't you? Yeah, I'd probably get these 28 to 75 because you've already got the 70 to 200. Mark, I'd get the Tamron in that case. David, how do you like your Coke with coffee? Sabir said, what do you use more for videos? Oh, that's Trevor talking about there. Tony said, I think the biggest hurdle that Nikon, Sony, and eventually Canon will have to jump will be availability. People may choose brand just based on availability needs. Yeah, because look, Nikon still can't supply the D850. It's still on back order now. I'm not sure though. I'm not 100% sure that Nikon haven't held some of those sensors back for their new mirrorless. We just don't know. I mean, are Nikon going to release full frame on that camera and then give you the ability to do crop mode, full frame in crop mode? I'm not sure what Nikon have got planned there. They may do something completely different and release I've gone blank. A medium format camera with the mirrorless and then give you full frame with crop. That may be what they do. We don't really know yet what they're going to actually offer in that sort of thing. But the thing is, I'm not also sure that they're not holding back availability on that on that sensor because they knew mirrorless is coming and they're developing a stack of those sensors for that as well. It's going to be interesting to see. Lone Rider said, mirrorless, so much cheaper to manufacture. Camera companies all about lowering costs and maximising profits. Yeah, so you're saying they're cheaper to manufacture? Not sure. I don't know about that, Long Rider. Trevor said, Panasonic GH5 is my go-to video camera for most things. I use the A7R II when I want precise S35. I do miss the GH5 definitely for hand-holding because that thing was unbelievable. The GH5 for hand-holding video without a tripod or gimbal or whatever was honestly like holding it on a tripod. I've never seen anything like that. Its tripod mode was just incredible, and I do miss that for that. But I certainly prefer the autofocus and stuff on and low light on these Sony cameras, though, Trev, that's for sure. Sabir said, Sony users should suggest me something. I'm selling my Canon 5D Mark V this week, planning on the A7R III, but should I wait for Canon mirrorless? I guess Sony would be a better buy. Look, it's hard to say because if you're in a hurry, I'd probably tend to get the A7 III. That's what I'd be buying if you're dealing. You've got to really let us know what you're shooting. If you're shooting more video, I would go for the Sony A7 III. If you're shooting stills and you need resolution, I'd go for the A7R III. If you're not in a hurry though, I'd just wait and see what happens in the coming months. I'd say at the moment, if you're not in a hurry, just wait. If you are in a hurry though and you need to do it soon, I probably would just buy Sony because you can't go wrong. But my suggestion at this stage, if you're not in a hurry, will be to wait. Alex says, I have the A7R III, great camera. Dave said, Canon has the score on the board with mirrorless already. The EF lens mount worked beautifully adapted to EFM. Jean said, I want to see people complaining that the Sony mirrorless system is expensive when Nikon and Canon prices theirs relatively a tad higher. Yeah, that is going to be interesting, actually, because they're always going on about that, aren't they? Alex said, what improvement can Sony make to the A7R III? Well, probably speed, for instance, definitely. Getting the images off that to the card is a problem, so they could definitely improve that. Focusing could definitely be improved because it's not quite as good as what the A7 III is, and the video aspect could be improved as well. So they're things that they could improve in the A7R, that's for sure. Dragon said, I own both the 24-105 and the 70-200, love them both. Jeffrey said, Tokyo will be the first city to broadcast the Olympic in Sony 8K ultra high definition. I believe this could mean a lot to the future for the camera lineup as well. Yeah, we're still away from that though. That could be probably in the next version of the A7S III. Not this one coming, but it could be the next one after that. Kevin said, David, how much of the camera can be enhanced with firmware update? You'd probably be surprised. They really probably could do a lot. There's certain things that I really wish Sony would do though. I would honestly love them to give us the ability to change your focus point from that black, because I hate it, you can't see it. Why they don't give us the ability to change that to a yellow or a red or something like that is beyond me. I'm sure they could add picture profiles into the A9 if they wanted to. They could probably improve focusing and do things like that. You'd be surprised what they could do with firmware. They could update the menus quite easily if they wanted to as well. Jared said, for beginners, is it worth starting crop sensor or full frame? Look, as a beginner, I'd say get the A7 III. Save up, get the A7 III, because then you've got room to grow. And that's the thing that I'm saying to people now is try and save and get the A7 III, definitely. Trevor said, for people starting predominantly professional video, proper log is a huge deal, and so far Nikon hasn't devoted the resources to create one. Yeah, and that's true. They are going to have to get a decent log profile if they're going to hit the video one. That's true, Trevor. Raz said, Pentax mirrorless for win, laugh out loud. Benjamin said, g'day Ben, it really just annoys me that manufacturers hold back what's going to be released. I mean, I want a new body, but I don't want an old ecosystem when there's new tech coming out. Yeah, and that's why I think Nikon have definitely done that to stop people jumping ship. And I think that's the reason why they've announced that so early. I think they were really worried what's happening. So they're trying to sort of give people a little bit of a feeder to then say, I'm not going to sell all my gear and move over to Sony, because there may be something that's coming out in the future, you know, that we can stop you moving over and stay with Nikon. I think that's what, but they haven't told us much at all, have they, if you think about it? I think they're just giving you feeder stuff to stop people switching. Dragon said, 115 watching, only 42 likes. Yeah, please give us a like, guys. I really would appreciate it if you could. Sabir said, I shoot photos more than videos, 60 to 40. Okay, for photos I do street, portraits and landscapes. But wait for what, David? Nikon or Canon system? Yeah, well, look, if you're not in a hurry, I'd just wait, because you don't know what's going to be on offer. There's no reason to rush. Remember, Photo Kina is only September away. It's not that long. So if you're not in a hurry to wait, I would hold off. Ed said in-body intervalometer. Yes, I mean, they probably could add that with firmware. You know, there's probably no reason why they couldn't add that there as well. And that's it. We're sort of basically down the questions. You can throw a few more if you want to. I know, look, it was a little bit of a rant, but I do want to try and hopefully get through to people that don't believe everything you see out there, that when these trolls start to talk and put people off things, just don't believe everything that you see and read and hear out there, you know, the doom and gloom. I'm one of the few out there that actually does believe that competition is good, and I want Nikon, Canon, Panasonic, Olympus, everyone to succeed, Fuji, because I think it's a great thing for everyone, because we all win at the end of the day. And I just hate negativity and people always going out there and telling untruths. We've got to stop doing that. And, you know, that really got me annoyed when I read that thing on the A7 III Facebook page talking about that Sony color science, and it just, you know, I don't know. Anyway, so let me know in the comments down below what you think about that. I'm sure I'm going to get some fantastic things on this one. It's going to be really interesting. So I'm waiting on that to see what actually happens. Got a little bit fired up. That's the Aussie way in me. You know, we do shoot from the heart as Aussies, and that's one of the things that you have to understand, that an Australian does shoot from the heart. We really say what we feel, and that's an interesting thing about how we are. We're very truthful people, and we are sort of like you just saw. You know, we're very easygoing as well and very laid back. But we also say it as it is, and like I said, we've come from that thing of not talking bullshit, you know, and it's just the way we basically are. What have we got there? Lance said, having issues getting the firmware update for my A7 III. I followed the directions. If you're on a Mac, Lance, you've got to follow it to the letter. It works if you do. Trust me, you have to follow it to the letter, though, the way it's done. You've got to load the driver and not click OK until things have been, I can't remember the exact order, but you definitely have to follow things exactly to the letter, and then it will work. Trevor said, don't dare believe everything you read, not even from the manufacturers. Always verify everything. Yep, true. Casper said, great show. Mick said, you can now go and have a Corona. I'm going to go and get a massage. Massage and a Corona and relax for the afternoon. Sabir said, yes, I get you, but I would not have a camera, and also don't have an L series lens from Canon. I have 50 1.4 Samyang lenses. Oh, okay. Yeah, well, just wait. Oh, you haven't got a camera. Well, if you haven't got a camera, I'd just jump in on Sony now. You can't lose. Not sure what Lance is saying. Suggestions. Like I said, cheers. Great show start for a Sunday. Thanks, mate, for watching. DC Photo said, I tried Sony the other day and realised it isn't as small as most haters say it. Yeah, it's not. Remember, you can always buy a battery grip if you want one. And I love the size, though. That's the thing for me. I adore that size. It's fantastic. Dave E said, competition is good, but ILC cameras are shrinking in the market. They are shrinking, and that's the thing. And I think the market's only so big. That's why Nikon and Canon have to get in there as well. When you think about how much Sony have grown in a short period of time, Sony have done a fantastic job. All right, guys, we've been going an hour. I'll catch you all for the next video. Hopefully I won't give you a rant on the next one. I just thought I'd like to answer a few of those trolls that are out there and say competition is good for all of us. All right, guys, catch you all. See you soon. Bye.